Steve Baxter is one of Australia's most successful tech entrepreneurs, best known as a shark on Shark Tank and for founding multiple successful ventures. Today, he leads Beaton Zone Venture Partners, an investment firm with a sharp focus, backing founders building disruptive technologies that strengthen Australia's sovereign defence and space capabilities. With billions of dollars of government commitments to defence modernisation and heightened global security tensions, the defence tech sector is emerging as both a critical national priority and a unique investment opportunity. I'm joined by Steve today to share his insights on navigating defence investments, spotting high-value opportunities, and the role private investors can play in building sovereign resilience. Steve, welcome to the Stock Network.
G'day, Lel. Thanks very much for having me.
Now, defence and space technology sit really at the intersection of national security and innovation. What do you think makes this sector a distinct and often misunderstood opportunity for private investors?
Well, I suppose what makes it the current opportunity is, it's all a bit sad, to be quite honest. It's at the moment there's a lot of global uncertainty. We've come off the back of probably close to 3 decades of historically low defence spending. And to be quite blunt, the tyrants are on the march. You have the horrible situation in Europe where there's a mechanised ground war raging, which is just terrible. And then you've got the constant threat of China wanting to take over Taiwan, which, and I think we learned from the Ukraine situation that when tyrants say things, we should believe them. So now what makes it an opportunity here in Australia is we've actually got a pretty good R&D base for most technical things, to be honest, and defence included. We're not overly blessed or under-blessed in that respect. We're a good place. We've got some great commercial and corporate and government incentives, R&D tax incentives. We have great investment incentives as well for this sort of stuff to occur. We're not the natural place to make these things. We're the natural place to create these things, you might say. As this historic underspending defence is being fixed, you're seeing the Europeans being dragged from 1.8, 1.3, 2% up to 3.5 to 5%. Australia will eventually get dragged into 3.5%, kicking and screaming, and just enough so our current Prime Minister can point at the orange man and call him bad. So look, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Like most of the tailwinds are very real. There's historic underspending. We've got great opportunity, and defence is essentially an unloved asset class. Irrationally unloved asset class, excuse me. And it's irrationally unloved because we really shouldn't need it. It's a bit ugly, human conflict, but it's existed since we walked out of caves. So as a result, there's not much investment capital in there. So it's a pretty good buy-side equation, to be honest. So it was a long answer. Sorry, it was a long answer. Sorry about that.
You don't need to apologize for long answer. I think you really hit it though when you said an unloved asset class.
Irrationally unloved asset, but you can unlove asset class.
Irrationally unloved. And, when we look closer at that from being irrationally and unloved, on the flip side, you've got a lot of technologies and breakthrough applications. So when it comes to you spotting that winning investment edge in this sector, what are the key traits that you look for are really in a defence or space startup that to you signal both commercial success and strategic importance?
Well, there's no such thing in the government space as build it and they'll come. And we're essentially selling to governments. So the thing to remember is, and a lot of people don't like, one of the many reasons, I think one of the 3 main reasons people don't like defence asset class is a perception of a single customer. The government's the only customer. Well, it's sort of true, but they're in our what we call the allied sphere, so we call the allied addressable market. We only sell to allies. So there's roughly 50 countries that an Australian enterprise can sell to without being arrested as a gun runner. So there's technically 50 customers out there. Each one of those has an Army, Navy, Air Force. God bless America, they've got Marines and Space Force and Coast Guard as well. And each one of those services then has 1, 2, or more special branches in there that can buy off tender. So there's hundreds of potential customers out there. So the former head of the Defence and Innovation Unit in the US, very well-respected defence innovator and procurer, basically was quoted as having 265 organisations inside the US DoD that can buy off tender. So the second reason people don't invest in this space is because of the suppressed returns, because it's mostly hardware. It's government sales and it's hardware. And hardware, from an investor's point of view, compared to software as well, mate, it's harder to get a return from. So it suppresses. You can get returns. The returns are just suppressed. There's a different return profile. The third reason is it's the stupidity and the societal pox that is ESG. the fact that people won't invest in businesses that defend the realm, I just find surreal. And you just exit stage left. You don't deserve to be investing other people's money. So, so in that context, there, how do we spot winners? So what we do is there's no such thing as build it and they'll come. So what we do is we look. So the Australian, I'll get all this in the right order. So I've always been a fan of when you invest, you get these businesses into the largest, easiest market that you can, right? And no market's easy. You always go for easier. The Australian defence budget, for example, is $35 billion US dollars. It's stubbornly staying that way. $35 billion US dollars. The US defence budget is $1 trillion US dollars and growing. The Europeans are about 0.6 trillion. So there's bigger markets out there. So what we do is we look for demand signals out of the US primarily. The US is just it's a great market. We look for demand signals. So we look for commanders and policy stating they need certain things, I suppose. Then we look for piles of money. So we look for budget allocations or units that have freedom to spend on these certain areas. Then we look for an exquisite user. So if we found a piece of capability in Australia, we want to take it to the US, we need to get it in the hands of someone who's going to test it. And the sexy end of that is like your SEAL Team Sixes and your Delta, all the sort of heroic sort of special operators. But on the other side, the US Coast Guard are great testers. Space Command's good. There's a lot of the police departments over there are highly militarized, are pretty good as well. So you need to line those up. You need to get your thing in someone else's hands and get them excited about it, wanting to buy it. There is no build it, they will come. So we look at that in a market sense. Then when it comes back to businesses, you look at the other stuff as well. Is how big's the market? What are the competitors? So there's all the standard DD that you'll do. Then it comes to people.
Yes. It is refreshing to hear you be so honest about the challenges of investing in this space. We all know the regulatory, political, procurement. There's an extensive list of challenges. But and you are a professional investor. But when it comes to the everyday investor, what practical advice would you offer them to cut through this complexity and also position themselves wisely in this space?
We have a fund now. I shouldn't say that, but I'm 30% of the fund, so my GP exposure is quite large. So what advice would I give others? Look, in general, I talk a lot of people who want to be angel investors, for example. I always say I've got like 97 companies I've invested in over the years. So take a portfolio approach, because if I knew which of those 97 was going to be the best winner, I would have put all my money into that one. You just don't know. So, and start a lot slower. Just start slow. I thought I started slow, but I would have started half as slow again, to be honest, when I entered this journey. So look, start slow. There's some really good books out there. I'm not a huge fan of. There's a lot of. I don't know your audience, but there's a lot of wank out there in books, to be honest. Excuse me, but there's some very practical ones out there. I think that's just in this space. And if you're getting into the angel investing space, there's a book by a chap called Jason Calacanis, who's very well known now for the All In podcast. He always seems to be the one getting his backside handed to him in arguments, which is pretty funny. But it's a book called Angel. It's actually quite good, to be honest. There's another book. There's several out there. That's probably a good one. I'm more in the venture space. So if you're looking at the sort of venture related stuff, then you look at probably the hard thing about hard things and venture deals. So they're good ways to get an initial handle on this space, I suppose. A good way for people who don't get exposure to wholesale, and we're a wholesale fund, so the whole 708 thing, you need to be a certain government needs to anoint you as being able to invest in our fund as being wealthy enough. So whilst you might be able to go and lose your house at a horse race, you can't actually lose your house investing in something else. Sorry, that's a libertarian in me coming out. But there are we have a surprisingly good defence. Our local bourse is surprisingly got some good defence stocks on there, to be honest. So Drone Shield has got a lot of play of late. You have Austal, you have EOS, and you have XRG just as a conflict there. I'm the largest shareholder in XRG, the founding shareholders. So, but they've gone through a hell of a time. They're coming through it now. So there are some good listed companies there. There's also companies if you're in that listed, if you're looking at doing listed investments that have exposure to defence contracts, I suppose, through supply of materials. And critical minerals become a massive issue in the next. It should have been from 10 years ago, but critical minerals is now becoming a massive issue. So I don't know who to back there, to be honest. But it's something that needs to get sorted out. Space, we like space. Space is so well named, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of space out there, basically. So, like in low Earth orbit, which is between about 200 kilometers to 500 kilometers above the Earth, there's 192 billion cubic kilometers of space. So, from that perspective there, and there's 15,000 objects up there, about to go to 100,000 objects in the next 10 years. I often get asked, will they collide with each other? I'm like, there's 192 billion cubic kilometers. I don't think there's enough room for everybody. And in the military domain, space is getting a big work out there, and it's going from sort of, space communication, space navigation, GPS constellations and similar, now to local space dominance, which is really, moving to the kinetic end of space, which is going to be a little bit touchy. There's so much opportunity in space.
Well, Steve, thank you for talking us through all the opportunities, also flagging a whole lot of challenges for investors to navigate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and all the best for your investing.
No dramas at all.